allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Gary Yards. Here. Leah Russo.
Here.
Chris Radish. Here. Bonnie Holstein.
Here.
Katie Dvorak.
Here.
Paul Dvorak is here. Brad Newby.
We're just gonna keep my comments quick because we got a lot to take care of tonight, so, additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? Seeing none, any motion?
I move to accept the agenda as written.
Support? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, community comments on the agenda.
Hi,
Okay, I'd like to remind everybody that 3 minutes, and please state your name.
is it 4?
This is just on the agenda.
Okay, so it's 3 right now. Okay. My name is Lana Power. I'm a parent and community member in taxpayer. I would like to talk about the agenda item of it's listed as verbal threat review. I know that there's a lot of questions and things that have come up in the past week and a half or so in regards to the threat that took place on the 16th. And I would like to voice my concerns over the, once again, poor communication process that took place. According to this, it was a verbal threat. I'm also concerned about the policies being followed because you don't know if it was a verbal threat until you investigate the situation. And so I would like to, verify that, policies were followed. We have policies in place, making sure that those policies were taken and followed. Because to my knowledge, none of the students were in lockdown or any secure, without movement that day while this was investigated. We've talked before about rumor mill. People will talk about rumor mill and they'll fill in the blanks when they don't have the information. Our robocall system didn't work that day. I didn't receive a phone call. I didn't receive an email. The notice that I got regarding the situation was on Facebook. And that is not an official way to notify parents. Again, that's lack of communication. That creates even further distrust in this district than we already have established 3 years ago when we had the gun incident and last year when we had a threat incident. We're not building trust in this community and in this district, and it's showing. We're in the 13th year of steady decline of enrollment, and those families aren't leaving for no reason, okay? I mean, some of them we get that. They're leaving because they've moved or things like that. People are leaving this district because they don't have trust in this district. And it is hard to have trust in this district when we have notifications coming from a building administrator, which is fine, but the district should be notifying, because even though it happened in this particular building, the elementary is behind. Those building administrators should have been notified that there was a threat, investigation, and, a district-wide email should have went out because threats that really could have had access on the bus. That building is right back here. So notifying everybody through the district or by the superintendent would have been a more appropriate response than a Facebook notification from the building administrator. And we, was the child in the building? Was the child not in the building? We have, I know you can't, tell us confidential things regarding that particular student, but it should have been in lockdown. There should have been some sort of lockdown procedure followed. We have these procedures. They weren't followed 3 years ago. The students never went into lockdown at that time. They, it's just very frustrating. It's very hard to ask us to trust you with our children when we're not getting proper communication. Some people got an email, some people got a phone call. I got neither. I heard about this on Facebook, kind of 3 years ago, when we heard about it on the news before we were given proper information.
My only comment would be for everybody, Mr. Kowalczyk's going to be speaking on some of this, so if you want to wait and hold your discussion stuff until we get to the end of the public comments, he may answer some of the questions that some people have. With that said, does anybody else want to speak right now or wait? Okay, we're moving on to communication then with Mr. Kowalczyk.
Thank you, President Doobie. First thing would be to talk about the volunteer guidelines. We recently went through quite an extensive process with one of our volunteer applicants. And looking through everything that we had, always used the 5 year for misdemeanors and 15 years for felonies. But our policy doesn't list anything with years because we talked about changing that. There is no numbers listed for policy, and what the policy talks about is that we will review them and we will make sure that we look for any possible issues. So kind of going with that same thing, I don't think we want to change the 5 or 15 year felony rule or 5 year misdemeanor rule for volunteers, but talking about keeping that for felonies, but after 10 years, that person would be able to come to the board like we did in the past month, to a committee or to the board, to talk about the reasons why they could be allowed to be a volunteer. And then it's still up to the board, could say absolutely not, no, we're not, or if they've listed all of these different ways that they have gone through rehabilitation and service to the community and all these other things that are out there. And if it is a non-violent crime, that the board could say, yes, you could come to us after 10 years. And then the 5 year misdemeanor, in the past, there are some things, like there could be someone that has a misdemeanor because they didn't have their insurance in their car, where we could say you can volunteer, but you cannot drive if there was anything to do with what the problem was for that misdemeanor. So there is no policy that states that to change. It can be up for discussion if we want to actually put something in for that, or just continue with what we've been doing and then add the same processes like we did for the last one. Just wanted your thoughts on that. Maybe you need to think about it as well. Not a rush, because as of this point, we're still keeping the 5 and 15 year rules. So, but I think after the last situation, that's kind of what we were thinking, that we could go with that same thing, that to tell people if they were denied, if you're 10 years in, have all these things, you can come to the board or a committee. The threat review and, that the question of verbal threat, I think it probably should have been more stated as written threat, not verbal threat. Could have been both. But I wanted to talk about this to clarify a few things. First, under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, that's FERPA, schools are prohibited from sharing student records. This includes disciplinary actions such as suspensions, expulsions, referrals, investigations. So from this, often you will see a statement from an administrator that says, we take this matter seriously and have addressed it according to district policy. Due to student privacy laws, we cannot share details about other students. Please, no appropriate action has been taken. That's kind of a generic statement that is out there for things like this. And there are times that parents become very angry and want to know, is the student out forever, for this amount of time? Are they here tomorrow? And that's a difficult thing because that is a student record. So I just wanted to support our administrators when they do say that. That is the law that they have to say. We cannot say the student is suspended for 10 days or whatever it is. Same reason when we have an expulsion, we go into closed session because the student's information cannot be shared. So that's the first thing. Yes.
You can't say he's not in school anymore. The threat is gone. You can't.
Legally, anything, and even if the law enforcement is involved, their information can be shared, but if it becomes part of the school record, now that can't be shared either. So that's a tricky thing with that.
That's
too.
what got us last time, was law enforcement came out and said more than we did.
Right.
So they're not under the same FERPA.
They are not. No, they are not. And as long as it's not part of our discipline investigation referral, that it's in the system, that the police, whether state or county, did this, and this, then they can be shared. But if it is in our system as that, we can't share that either, because now it's part of their student record. And that's grades, attendance, these are all part of the student record. Those are things that we cannot share. I just want to have a question.
Yeah, well, I have a comment.
Yeah.
I think it's not necessarily about the FERPA stuff. It's about being able to communicate to the parents that there is no longer a threat. And you can stay within the guidelines that you need to, but I think that's where it's lacking, is the communication, is to let them know that the threat has been removed. You can say that without using any student's information, right?
Well, if the student is identifiable, then no, you can't.
Well,
Even
I
if you
think
can't say, and that's the tricky thing, yes, I know what you're trying to say.
what we need to look at is how do we communicate it better?
Sure. So a few things just to give you more information on it, that this was, the administration was notified. They took care of the situation and contacted police. They were involved and handled the situation how they needed to. And then later that day, that's when the information started going around on the social media. That was from the previous day. And it was a portion of it. So that was a big issue. And one thing that we have talked about a lot is the communication. And we even talked about, do we not use Facebook? Because that seems to be an issue. But a lot of people, that's what they're using. Number one, obviously, we have a great website and email system right now, and the call home. Those are the things that we need to do when it is a serious situation.
But the call home bit us last time. His parents didn't answer the calls.
Some, yeah.
Right? So
And then it
we,
didn't work this time?
No, the call, it was yes, the call was sent home the first time. No, the email, it wasn't the call. The call was sent home the second day. The email was the one that didn't go out to everyone with the glitch in that system that's been taken care of. So, yeah, but that's something that we need to do when it's a situation that warrants it, that call needs to go home with the email. Yeah, we agree on that.
was this one warranted not to be serious? Didn't? Because it wasn't actually anything in the
I don't know.
school?
Well, yeah, it wasn't in the school, and it was taken care of early in the day, so there was no threat, in the school. But that may be something to, we talked with Dr. Braun about that one, and we did, and that's when we said that this would need a call home for this. The information did spread and involved in several inaccuracies, including claims that a student had a weapon at school, which never happened, that there was a kill list, which there was never any indication of that after investigation. That was never seen. But that was one of the problems that we were having, that parents were saying their kid was on this list, that there never was one, or if there was, we had never seen it. It was never brought to our attention, and authorities and our school would like to have seen that if we had it, if there was one, but we did not ever see that. And I think maybe some parents thought that we knew that there was a list, and there was not, that we had no information on that. Those claims were not accurate according to the information that we had.
So when someone shares a clip art of a conversation between two students, obviously with FERPA, we're not gonna be able to comment on it, to say if it's true or false or complete or incomplete.
No, we can't. Well, now if that's part of the discipline, yeah, if that was part of the discipline, we can't. We cannot talk about it. Now, you're right. What's the way to let people know that it's safe at school? That's the main thing. Which it was. If it wasn't, we would not be in school. And the problem was that it was the wrong day. I mean, that was from before, and then the picture came out the next day where that student was not able to even be here. So yeah, that was the problem with that whole thing. Now, moving on a little bit further into this process, our district follows a comprehensive threat assessment protocol. It was developed in partnership with the state police. We went through training for this, and the process is thorough and involves multiple staff members. It includes reviewing social media, conducting interviews, carefully evaluating all available information to ensure our student safety. And those threat assessments are done whenever there's a possible threat. It happens when there are not threats sometimes, but somebody says it, that's why we look into it. It's a very structured process, and pretty in-depth to make sure that we cover everything. You know, and was going to talk about the communication. We already did talk about that the message was intended to be sent to all middle and high school parents. The technical issue prevented that from happening. So, and moving forward, we're going to do that, as well as call when it's needed. We strongly encourage parents and the community members to contact the school directly instead of putting more questions on Facebook. The problem with that is when it's at night, the night before school, there's nobody at the school to call at that point. But even, you know, if somebody's going to stay home, call in the morning and we can tell the truth that's out there and kind of eliminate some of those rumors or inaccuracies that were out there. That's something that would possibly help, because we know that the incorrect stuff spreads very quickly, and Dr. Braun was on the phone almost the whole day the next day talking to parents, and those conversations were very productive. She has talked quite a bit about how it was nice to talk to parents, to give them the information that was correct and accurate. It's not something that you know of before you write the letter, what rumor is going to be out there. You know, you couldn't dispel the rumors before they happened because you didn't know that they were even going to be said. So that's something that we hope can happen. We may talk about, is there a place, you know, on our new website that has all these great places to put something so parents know if there's ever anything, the first place I look is right here. We have the email as well. We have the app now that has notifications. We have a lot of things, a lot of places to make sure that that information is out there and is correct and accurate. Our attendance for that day did not meet the state requirements on the 17th. It doesn't make a difference to us. Really, we still meet the year requirements for days and hours and everything. But you know, due to those inaccuracies and rumors that we had quite a few students that stayed home, and that it did not count. So, you know,
Give them a credit for the absence. Did they require? How did we handle that absence? Just a parent signature?
Yes, it's everything. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because we still had school. I mean, school was still on, so that was still there. You know, questions, thoughts?
Thank you. I mean, it's really shocking how quick it spread, don't you think? Everybody agree? It's kind of like the community just doesn't trust that the first initial
This happened.
contact that comes out.
This happened second hour on Wednesday.
The 16th. I don't know if that was Wednesday. I think that's probably right. I think that's right. Is it? Is that Thursday?
No, the 17th was Thursday, so
Okay.
it would have been the 16th. And so I don't understand why, like, I just wonder, and I appreciate that you're trying to make changes so that it goes better in the future, but like, my school sends out a text message and I'll contact parents to make sure they got the text message. So if this happened in second hour on Wednesday, why wasn't until Thursday afternoon that we understood that the messages didn't get put out?
And I don't know why we didn't know.
Well, I'm just saying, just to review.
Probably when people told
figure
us
out-
we didn't get the message, you know, thinking it went out and it didn't.
Right,
And
but
then
there needs to be like a follow-up is what I'm saying, especially in a situation like this where we're saying, did parents get this email? Did anybody follow up to make sure that it worked? Since we have a system that sometimes fails.
And it shouldn't.
I think there's even a bigger problem though. I mean, as a parent, I don't have the same concern as all those other parents. I know when they're here, the administration is going to take care of my student. So there's trust there.
Right.
I have a level of trust.
Right.
Obviously, a large portion of the community doesn't have that trust.
Right.
And how do we earn that trust from them? And is it possible to?
My thought is that it's, a lot of them is probably the belief that what went out was vague. They didn't get as much information as they wanted.
It was the same vagueness I read,
Right.
but for me, I didn't jump to the conclusion that,
Right, but I
and
think
I'm
they
not saying
want
they were
more.
wrong, I'm just saying we've got a disconnect. Yeah.
Right.
Because I work with these folks,
Right.
so. They don't. I think we need to help our folks maybe get trained on how we communicate and build that trust.
You and I talked, I talked to
Because
Gary
it's-
a little bit.
It's not automatic.
We talked about kind of like customer service. And that would be through the student or to the student, like teachers have a customer service opportunity through the student, and then also to the parent. And then I forward Andy some leadership classes that were good for me, that I took when I thought I was good. I wasn't. And they helped me a lot. So I sent those to Andy. But I think we got to step back and look at more of a customer service role instead of policies, which I understand policies and rules. I just don't want to hide behind them, right? I want to try to help them, enhance them, go a little bit farther than what is required.
I mean, we started that PR committee.
Yeah.
That's not a policy committee, that's more of a relationship committee. And I think this, it's been kind of looking for a task.
Yeah.
I wonder if this maybe is a first thing you folks can maybe consider, how we can build that relationship to get that trust. It's not going to come overnight, but if we don't start at some point.
Right.
This goes with the bond. We're going to go
Right.
for a millage.
And if we're gonna
We're
have
going to increase.
this school increased with that addition, you know?
Mhm.
So then if these happens in the high school, then more students are in danger, you know, so.
Let's fix this before we continue to grow, before we grow here.
Yes.
The ISD budget process, for many years, the ISD business director and superintendent has visited us once a year to go through the ISD budget. This year, they have scheduled a summit on May 12th at 5:30 for all board members to go to, and that's for all board members throughout the ISD, because they're saying the same thing different nights to different boards, and sometimes there are questions that they think that would have been a great question if they would have asked at the other district, 2 weeks ago. So they thought the idea would be good, and other ISDs do this, where they have a summit to go through that budget process. So that is on the 12th. They do need a count. If you want to let me know, I don't know if tomorrow or Wednesday, if you can attend that. It's at the Booming Chefs restaurant at the Career Center. And they will go through all of that. I think it said it's 5:30, right? Yeah, 5:30. So let me know, or Lydia know, if you can attend. Any questions on
Yeah,
that?
I can add a little more, because we just had a meeting there today. It's gonna be a little bit more than that. They're gonna give you a tour of the Career Center. Is the plan. And also talk about program. Especially, they know special ed is a hot topic for locals suffering with inclusion. So they're gonna cover some of that. So if we have questions beyond just the budget,
Cause this is. a
then we need to
limited-
submit them before, they don't want the questions when we show that day. Because they'd like to prep and get a good answer and make sure they get the proper answer. So if you want the answer for everybody to hear it, she asked if we could get the question in days before.
So send that to Lydia, probably.
Send that to Lydia.
Questions.
Yeah.
I know it's probably getting pretty close.
Is anyone planning on going besides Gary?
Okay, check my schedule.
Yep, check it.
Tomorrow.
No?
Text you down.
Join me?
I'm not sure I could.
Let's see, next, the community survey info has been coming in. I was able to get a sneak peek at it last week, but the next meeting, May 11th, we will have a presentation from the company that put this on. Hearing a lot about it within the community, some good, some questions, and it's good to hear the questions so we can get those answers. And I just had a few things that I wanted to bring to you that from the report, or not from the report, from the results that I've already seen and have started thinking about, because the plan is to do another set of those rounds of meetings in the townships or our areas after we have all these questions, and now we know what people really are wondering about. So that would be a great time to do that. The first question that I've heard before I even seen the results was, why is the cost doubled by adding the field house when it's not even half of what the first part was? You know, you're adding 50% and you're increasing it by 100%. It was kind of hard to understand that. I did email our financial person that's putting this all together, and he gave me a paragraph of language that you'd have to be a financial advisor. But with talking to someone else and him, what we came up with was, it's like there's two buckets. The first bucket has just the elementary part that has built up the equity with what we've already been doing, and it's a much shorter term. So that interest rate is much better, and it's the price that we were given. The second bucket would be for that field house that was about another 50%, but increased it so much. That second bucket did not have the equity built in because it's already used up on that first bucket, and the interest is much longer. So that's why it does cost that much more. And that was a question that I think the third person that came up to me, I said, I already know what you're going to ask. And they said, yeah, that's exactly it. So that was going on a lot. But here are some other things, some key concerns from parents, I guess you could say. Separation of the elementary and secondary is critical to many. You know, how would we do that? And we haven't even built plans or drawings or anything yet. So that's why we did this. So when those plans come in, if we're going to go forward, then we can make sure that is a separate building. It's a, you know, two buildings under one roof type thing, and they would be separate. There were many suggestions for a new separate building, which there were a lot of plans that went into this, and it adjusted probably 3 or 4 times before we sent that survey out. And that was one of the first things, was talking about a new separate building or renovating one of or both of what we had now, and the cost is the same amount with what the plan we have now to building a new one by itself, and the renovations would still have the 50, you know, the building from the 50s that needs a lot, and it wouldn't be cost effective. But that's what we need to get out more of, those things that we weren't able to put all of that in. We would have had a 10-page document that people wouldn't have looked through. Many asking for comparisons with renovations. That's what I had just talked about. Where and how did we get the cost? You know, it wasn't in there that we did have architects and engineers and advisors that went through, and they're the ones that actually gave us these costs. Talking about staff, would there be staff that lose jobs? Where does our $4 come from? How are property tax, I don't know what that $4 was, but how are property taxes paying for our schools? Just a general question is, how does this work with my property taxes when we're already paying in? So that was kind of that was more of a big overlooking, you know, 30,000 view look at how that whole process works, where we pay in. The field house, many love the idea and think that is a must, but the majority say no. And some were going as far as calling me and us very inappropriate names for even asking about a field house. You know, so it's interesting reading this, where you have some that love the idea, think it's great, and others think it's a horrible idea, and that's what we're getting, the information.
Have you seen it?
What's
Your
that?
surveys?
I seen as of last Wednesday, I think, but there still was 5 days left, I think, or something like that. And then we need to provide more information on success stories, how to prove we are successful before we want to ask for more money to do what we have now. And I think our new website is doing a great job with that, with all of the news stories and the articles and things that are in there. The problem is everybody in the community is not looking at our website that doesn't have kids here at the school. So there was a lot of talk even about a newsletter, which that's kind of, people have thought of that being a thing of the past. But, you know, maybe that is something we look at, of doing maybe a biannual newsletter that goes out to everybody, and we talk about the good stories and all the great things that you hear all the time, or that we put on our YouTube interview channel or whatever it is may be. So it was interesting, and there were a lot of good stuff. So I'm interested in hearing on the 11th the full report of where we're at. And then a few months ago, we talked with RJ Naughton about refinancing our bonds. And then maybe a month or two ago, that was halted because we were not going to make enough money from refinancing that's needed. And that's all state ran, and they tell you how much you have to be able to make back to even do this process. So with interest rates, we're way up, and now it's back on track. I'm getting emails from all sorts of different people with organizing it and setting things up. So it is back on track so that we will be able to refinance and save some more money, which we've done a great job of with this bond that we've had since 07, 06 when it was first approved. So we've done that twice now. And then, like I said earlier, the Mayor Scholarship Ball tickets, we do have those for, it used to be called the Mayor Scholarship Ball, now it's the banquet. Dating myself a little bit with calling it a ball. So that is $35 a ticket if anybody's interested in that. And that was going to be my final thing, but Miss Van Dreech was not able to be here, so she asked me to have Mr. Stoneback come and talk about his award that he was recently given. So Mr. Stoneback is this week's Michigan Lottery Excellence in Education winner. You will be able to see Mr. Stoneback on WNEM TV5 tomorrow during the 5:30 news program. Mr. Stoneback contributes to our students' success educationally as an ELA and AP government teacher. He is very important to our student leadership opportunities through the many student council programs that he oversees. Mike can be seen and heard announcing many of our high school athletic events, and he is also our varsity boys soccer coach. Mike is now eligible for the Educator of the Year Award through the Michigan Lottery, which includes a $10,000 cash prize, and all of the weekly winners throughout the year are eligible for that. So we know how great of a teacher we have in Mr. Stoneback. It's nice when others see that as well. So I did want to thank him for everything he does and have you hear that he did win that award. So thank you, Mr. Stoneback. And that's it for me.
Good spirit staff, John. You have anything?
No, yeah, right, sorry.
Sarah?
Just wanted to thank Mr. Prime and all of our other teacher volunteers for prom on Saturday. It was very successful. Kids were fantastic. I think we had over 140 kids there, so super good. Really neat venue in Bay City, so really good to see all of the kiddos come out. We had PD today, super productive for the secondary level. Teachers had some good time. We had some sessions this morning together, and then they working on some data all afternoon, so really good conversations all day long. Our senior and spring awards are on Friday morning in our high school gym, and so that's where we'll honor all of our seniors and see where they're going next year, and also promote our 8th grade up to being freshmen. Tomorrow I get to take 4 of our students to Lansing for Youth Advocacy Day. That's through the Sterling-based health clinic. We went last year, and then we'll go again this year and talk to some of the government officials about making sure we have that funding and keeping that in all of these health clinics for our school system. So usually really neat opportunities to see our kiddos interact with all of our Congress members, which is super fun. State testing is almost wrapped up, and we start AP testing in a week, so we are flying towards the end of the year.
One more quick thing I wanted to talk about the secondary. The Career Center had their awards last week. Pinconning very well represented. We had 11 students win an Outstanding Student of the Year award, and 5 were Student of the Year awards in their classes. So there was someone sitting next to me who their family gave a scholarship, and afterwards she said, "Holy cow, Pinconning has some good students, don't they?" I'm like, "Yeah, we did very well." So it was easy to see that we have some amazing students there at the Career Center and here. So I wanted to pass it along.
Yeah, just one quick announcement. This Wednesday, April 29th from 4 till 6 is our literary showcase. All of our advanced ELA students, grades 6 through 12, depending on the teacher, will be representing students will be represented by having different projects showcased all throughout the high school gym. So stop by, I think there's gonna be popcorn and cotton candy, and you'll be able to vote for different projects.
We're just having our Linwood Family Night Thursday night, from 5 to 6:30. Do some math games, STEM activities, some take-home math games, and then the book fair will be over.
Jeremy? Okay. All right, on to the consent agenda.
Make the motion to approve the consent agenda. And it would pay the bills that total $772,401.61.
Support.
Yeah, motion support, any discussion? Roll call?
Brian Holstein.
Yes.
And Gary Yards.
Yes.
Leah Rulo.
Yes.
Chris Radish.
Yes.
Katie Gorchak.
Yes.
Paul Gorchak is yes. Brad Doobie.
Yeah. Okay, non-consent agenda, update volunteer guideline.
Move to add proposed guidelines to volunteer background checks.
Support.
I'm okay to wait if people aren't ready yet, though. If anybody's got concerns.
Proposed guidelines.
As listed here.
Yeah.
It's basically what Andy,
Yes.
That they can come to you after 10 years.
Yeah, like
Okay, then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now on to public comments. Again, I say before you, but this time you have 4 minutes. We will not respond unless it's absolute something I think, and either only I or I'll have Mr. Kowalczyk respond. Again, just please rise, state your name.
Lana Bauer. I appreciate the information and kind of sharing that Dr. Brown was on the phone the following day after, but I'm also now another question, how do we dispel the rumors without violating FERPA if you can't share any more information than we already got? So I find it interesting that she spent all day with rumors, but we weren't supposed to share any more information because that's a violation of FERPA. I know some of you know, I've been in front of this board a bajillion times, okay? Tell you the same things over and over again, okay? You assure us that policy is gonna change, you assure us that there's gonna be accountability, you assure us that there's gonna be communication, so we can build back that trust. And I just don't see it. I personally see a huge double standard in accountability when it comes to our building administrators. One person told one thing, one person told another thing. We have policies, black and white policies, and I get there's always a gray area. But we can't hold kids to a certain standard or set an example for them that we're not gonna hold ourselves accountable. And we're gonna push these gray areas, yet we're gonna hold them to a black and white standard, okay? And it happens. My son is one of them, okay? If we're going to hold children to a standard, we have to hold ourselves to a standard as adults. The other problem is that if you have a certain name on the back of your jersey, then you don't fall into that, okay? So there was recently, and I'm not sure if any of you have seen it, recently a video posted by the PHS baseball team interviewing, asking who the hottest mom on the team was. I don't know who thought that was appropriate. I don't know to video it, to let him ask these questions, and then to upload it, whether it was a school sanctioned page or not, they were in uniform representing. Now, the video has since been taken down, but according to MHS guidelines, MHSSA or whatever guidelines, like that's a violation of standards. So are we going to address that, or did the videos down and we're just gonna move on from that? Because again, when you break a rule, you're supposed to be held accountable, but are we gonna hold these kids accountable? And the adults that were involved in it. Again, I've addressed 504 violations, IEP violations, civil rights, OCR violations, and we wonder why parents are leaving, because these things keep happening. The Booster Club has a new president, and the information that we have is that the paperwork has not been filed to show that there's new, president, new people on that board. I've addressed library books and the appropriate content in the library system of who's accessing what. And that was never mentioned again to me. If there's a directory, who's reviewing these books for appropriate content. Sex ed committee. Sex ed committee. Last time I remember parents being asked to come and give input on a sex ed committee was when my kid was in elementary school. I mentioned that again. When has that been updated? Prom. I love it. I think they had a great time. But again, who thought it was a great idea to put our kids downtown on Midland Street over top of a bar and a cigar bar on Midland Street on a Saturday night? Like, I get it's a venue, but it's also on a very dangerous bar district. And ages of guests, like how are we monitoring that? Because, you know, there were guests there that I believe were beyond the age that should have been attending prom as a guest. People don't attend these school board meetings anymore because people who, like me, speak out are overwhelmed. They're emotionally just done, or they've left the district. And so building the trust isn't gonna come just from a couple of little things. It's gonna take a lot.
Anybody else? Board? Discussion, you guys?
Thank the dozen parents that came tonight. Appreciate you coming. Even if you don't speak, it is important for you to be here. Get some information. It shows that you're active. Continue to come as much as you can. We understand it is time out of your day. But just continue to work with the district the best you can. Thanks for coming.
That'll conclude we have a couple closed session things that we have to take care of. We will be going back into open session for a vote on the teacher's contract, but that's the only thing we will be going back into open session for after closed sessions. Okay, so. Thank you.
We're going to closed session.
Board going to closed session. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so we are in closed session for student discipline.
Same reason.